This is CUELLAR TV with another presentation. We gotta talk about this. Okay, guys, I'm convinced at the moment that all Democratic presidents that get elected do not work for the United States of America. I swear, if you check these people's pay stub, it probably says China or something like that, because the policies these people release is against Americans and against the country of America. Biden ends migrant parent deportations. Here are all the Trump-era immigration policies rolled back so far. We're going to go through and check out what Joe Biden has been doing, reversing all of Donald Trump's policies, primarily immigration policies. The Biden administration said Friday it would rescind a 2018 policy that discouraged caregivers from picking up migrant children in custody at the border. Its latest move to overhaul the hardline immigration system Trump implemented over the past 4 years. So we're going to check out the moves that Joe Biden has made. Key facts. The policy reversal Friday means the Health and Humane Services Department would no longer be required to check the immigration status of parents or sponsors who come forward to take custody of children being held at the border. So that one there is a policy Trump implemented, which is another no-brainer policy. You can't have illegal immigrants picking up other illegal immigrants, especially the kids that are crossing the border. Okay, so that just doesn't make any sense. Why would Biden reverse that? He doesn't work for America. He works for China. Call him China Joe. On February 24, Biden reopened the country to legal immigration, ending an April 2020 green card ban that Trump said would protect Americans' jobs during the pandemic recession. Why would you do this? Why would you not want to put Americans first so Americans can have those jobs and legal immigrants over illegal immigrants or even refugees that come into the country? Because at the end of the day, if we don't put Americans first, who's going to put us first? The Biden administration on February 4 raised a federal limit on the number of refugees allowed in the U.S. each year to 125,000 after Trump had ordered it to its lowest level since the passage of the American Refugee Act in 1980. Okay, it was Title 42 that Trump implemented that was because of the coronavirus pandemic that was happening. He didn't want the refugees or illegal immigrants coming over bringing more COVID. So under Title 42, they shut that down. Why would Biden reverse that when we're still not over the pandemic or over the economic recession that the pandemic has created? Continuing on February 2, Biden established a task force to reunite the hundreds of migrant parents and children who remain separated from a Trump administration crackdown at the border in 2018. Biden also canceled a Trump administration memorandum that required family sponsors to repay the government any public benefits and ordered a wide-ranging review of immigration policies that restricted asylum, reduced legal immigration, and paused foreign aid. So why would you not have these people repay the government of any public benefits? And also, he just took away the public charge thing that Trump implemented also, which was denying illegal immigrants any public assistance from the government, or in the future, they could not try and ask for citizenship. Continuing on, within hours of his inauguration on January 20, Biden signed several executive orders that marked a dramatic break from the America First approach Trump took toward immigration. America's last, as I said, China Joe does not work for us. The flurry of executive orders lifted travel restrictions on passport holders from 7 predominantly Muslim countries, a Trump-era immigration policy that Biden called a stain on our national conscience. This guy is the leader of morality for the free world. That's a joke, Biden. The orders revoked a drastic expansion of immigration enforcement that had prioritized the deportation of illegal immigrants over criminals, one of the earliest executive orders under Trump, and pledged protection for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival programs, also known as DACA, started by Obama in 2012, when it was only supposed to be a temporary solution. Almost 10 years later, we're dealing with this. Biden also terminated the national emergency declaration Trump used to fund a security wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, halting construction of the 450-mile project that had been a central campaign pledge by the former administration. I'm going to show you a video coming up where, because Biden stopped the border wall is now incomplete. So you have sections of the border wall that aren't there. So basically, you're just congregating these illegal immigrants into one area, and they're still crossing the border through those places that have gaps in the fence or where the wall was not completed. Last but not least, a program that forced migrants to wait out their U.S. immigration cases in Mexico was also suspended under the executive orders. MPP, Migrant Protection Protocols, or Remain in Mexico, which was having these people that were trying to claim asylum. Many of these asylum seekers, I would say most of these asylum seekers are actually false claims anyway. He was making them wait in Mexico while they would wait for their court case. Now they're allowed to come into the United States for years because most people's court case isn't going to be within the first year. They're releasing these migrants that have coronavirus into the interior of the United States. And as I said, China Joe does not work for the United States anymore. We got that and a lot more illegal immigration topics to get into. Check this out.
We go to your border news now. A surge of migrants are crossing into the United States every day, and Cochise County Sheriff Mark Daniels says it's been a problem for law enforcement.
And on your side's Greg Bradbury shows us why that surge is just one of the many other challenges they're facing right now.
It stopped this construction. It's like frozen time.
President Biden's executive order stopped construction of the border wall, but left gaps for local authorities to fix.
We're on our own out here.
Cochise County Sheriff Mark Daniels says this is not what they wanted.
This is worse now than it was before. There was no infrastructure but mountains. Now we have infrastructure, and we have holes in our wall.
Now here you can see one of the holes in the wall. They just put up a makeshift fence to prevent people from coming in, but as the wall continues up, once you get to the top, it just ends, and that creates a path for migrants to cross into the United States.
We just build infrastructure for the cartels.
Mountains had kept people away, but a path built for construction vehicles is now being used by migrants.
And based on the stats, 2,500 to 4,000 people a day on the southwest border being apprehended. And that doesn't include the getaways.
Is this a crisis at the border?
This is a crisis all along the southwest border. And it's all built around a hasty decision, a hasty executive order, and lack of collaboration between local, state, and the federal.
Now Governor Ducey is speaking with Sheriff Daniels about the possibility of sending the National Guard in to help.
We're planning on meetings here in the near future to discuss what's the best approach.
Daniels is turning to Washington for answers.
I would just be happy if Washington, D.C. would come out and say, we have a crisis on our border. Not a challenge, but a crisis, because there's no organized plan. Not no fault to local law enforcement or state government. It's because we were not involved in the initial plan. So we do. We want some answers. We want some questions, and we need to work together to solve this.
Greg Bradbury, KGUN 9, on your side.
Well, since San Diego is a border town, we are now welcoming retired U.S. Border Patrol agent Chris Harris to discuss why so many migrants are arriving at our southern border now that the Biden administration has taken office. Mr. Harris, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning to you.
I am sure that you were in touch with many of your former colleagues. What can you tell us about what's going on, what's really going on at the border right now?
I sure am, and I was just down the border the other day. I still talk to a lot of people. We've done a complete reversal. We had the border under control. It was getting better every single day, the best that people had seen in decades. And within a short month, it's been reversed. I like to say that this should be a nonpartisan issue. Securing our nation's borders, protecting the people in this country, protecting the Constitution and the institutions of this country should be a nonpartisan issue. And somehow it's become very partisan. And what's happened in the last month or so, since this current administration took office, is they've just unilaterally undone everything that President Trump has done. You don't have to be a big Trump supporter to look at some of the things he's done and say, that was done well. And what he did on the border was done well. And it is going back to the days of being the Border Patrol being overwhelmed, uncontrolled, and then you add in the pandemic, and it's simply unconscionable what's happening on the border right now.
Okay, this is something we hear. Kids are being separated from their parents. Is that true? If so, under what circumstances?
Well, I mean, we have certain laws in place that we have to follow. And one of those is that, children cannot be put with adults. I'll give you an example. A guy comes in and he's 26 years old and he has, a 12-year-old girl with him and he says, this is my daughter. We're not going to house them together. We can't legally. So we do family units that are women and children when we're pretty sure that those children belong to them. We're getting a huge uptick, though, in unaccompanied minor, unaccompanied children, UACs, and family units. That is problematic. Two things that are being undone. One was the migrant protection protocol that President Trump signed with a socialist president, President Lopez Obrador of Mexico. Something unheard of that allowed people that were coming from other countries. They got to Mexico. They were claiming they were leaving El Centro, Guatemala, Honduras, whatever, because of threats to them or whatnot. They said they have a credible fear. And what the deal was, they would wait in Mexico until it was their turn to be heard for the asylum case. And then if they won the asylum case, they were allowed into the United States. Buenos Estados Unidos, God bless. And if they didn't convince the asylum hearing officer that they had a credible fear, they weren't allowed in. And that was working. And that's been undone. So we're back to the old days of catch and release. In San Diego sector, and I know at my former station, Imperial Beach Border Patrol Station, they are literally processing these people, driving them to the transit centers, the Border Patrol, and dropping them off. And they're not being, let's be clear, the Title 42 that was done for health issues with the pandemic is being undone. We're not testing them for COVID-19. So understand that the northern border is shut down between Canadians and the U.S., basically. But you can come across the border illegally or claim asylum, and we're going to release you into the United States to travel where you will. They're going to get on buses, trains, airplanes, and they're going through. And we know, because they've done testing by NGOs in Texas, that these people have COVID-19, a good proportion of them. And they're traveling through on public transportation throughout the United States. And they're being dumped in people's communities. So not only is this a security issue, but this is a national health issue. We're trying to lower the numbers, and these poor communities on the border are having this influx of people that have not only COVID-19, but other third world diseases. We see malaria, dengue fever, typhus, typhoid, TB, all of that. They're not being tested for this, and they're being released on their own recognizance. And I'll point this out. Years ago, the GAO did a study, the U.S. Government Accountability Office did a study, and they showed that 90% of these people that are released into the United States on their own recognizance would not show up for their hearing. And so we're back to those days. And the optics around the world is the border is open.
Okay, one last question for you, sir.
Sure.
How might what's going on at the border right now affect our attempts here on this side of the border to combat human trafficking?
Well, I mean, everything across the border now, when I started, there were mom and pop smuggling organizations 20-some years ago. Everything now has been subsumed in the cartel. Anything that goes across the southwestern border that's illegal, be it cash from drug proceeds, narcotics, weapons, people, people for sex trades, people for labor things, it goes to the cartels. So everything that you're seeing now is money in the pockets for the cartels, and it's going to be more in fentanyl, it's going to be more crime, and more dangerous situations in the United States, because the U.S. Border Patrol is also more busy now handling these family units that come across in groups of 100. And while they're doing that, they're not in the field, and the cartels bring more narcotics across the country, across the border. So you're going to see crime rates going up in border communities. You're going to see fentanyl overdoses going up, and you're going to see a spike in COVID-19 again. So I don't understand why we can't use some reason and say some of these policies that Trump put into place, whether you like them or not, were good. But it just seems that we've undone everything, and the border is back to where it was a few years ago. In fact, it's going to probably reach the worst in numbers in 20, 30 years.
Tonight we take a look inside the southern border crisis. Correspondent Griff Jenkins reports from McAllen, Texas, where he encountered a large group of illegal immigrants and talked with Border Patrol agents about their perspective.
A growing sense of urgency as the surge in migrants illegally crossing the southern border has Border Patrol struggling to provide the resources families and minors need.
It's out of control. I mean, right now it's the busiest I've ever seen it.
Despite more than 100,000 migrants arrested at the southern border last month, the Biden administration has yet to declare the situation a crisis, upsetting some of the local residents.
Are you frustrated that they don't call it a crisis?
Yes, I am frustrated because they think that we're all idiots. First, they have to admit it. Once they admit the problem, they can come up with a solution.
New CBP numbers show a 28% increase from January and a 97% increase from fiscal year 2020. In March of 2019, CBP called it a crisis when more than 66,000 people crossed the border. Here in the Rio Grande Valley, they saw 1,790 apprehensions in just the last 24 hours. Now we're seeing yet the third group approaching here behind us. We've seen unaccompanied minors out here, mostly families. As they make a long journey, they'll walk for about another mile to mile and a half to a point where the Border Patrol here has a temporary processing tent. Locally, the holding capacity is currently at 300%, with officials scrambling to keep up.
We partner up with Catholic Charities, and we have quite an operation now. We've had to move it a couple times. It got political in our city.
From a boots-on-the-ground perspective, Border Patrol agent Chris Cabrera says we need to get the politics out of it.
If we have this gang mentality, this red versus blue, and our side sees it this way, so your side has to see it that way, nothing will ever get solved. They need to leave their partisan hat at the door.
And in a sign of rising above the politics, Fox News has learned that Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn and Democrat Representative Henry Cuellar will travel together tomorrow to visit the border to view firsthand the escalating migrant crisis. Brett?
Griff Jenkins in McAllen, Texas. Griff, thank you.
Quite a scene this morning on Padre Island as Border Patrol agents were tracking several undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, it began with what law enforcement officials say was a suspicious vehicle seen at the Padre Island National Seashore. And when agents trying to stop the vehicle, the people inside got out and took off running. In all, 11 people were found with the help of the air and marine operations from the U.S. Coast Guard. Reporter Lexus Green shows us how that scene unfolded in tonight's top story.
Neighbors and residents here on North Padre Island were trying to figure out what all the commotion was taking place this morning at Padre Valley Park after witnessing a helicopter and heavy law enforcement out here searching the dunes. We spoke with one resident who shares what they saw.
Saw and heard the helicopter flying low as I was walking my dog at 7 a.m. and I figured they were going to go do a search. I thought spring breaker, in the water, unfortunately.
Robert Aljo, a nearby resident and retired Coast Guard of 30 years, said the helicopter caught his eye and he stayed to watch some of the scene unfold. He tells me he saw men and women and teens being apprehended by agents. Here are the photos he shared with 3 News. What appeared to be a search took place near Padre Valley Park and Park Road 6 near Seapine Street and lasted a few hours. Border Patrol, along with Texas game wardens and CCPD, were all on scene. We will continue to keep you updated as we receive information on today's search. Stay with us on air and online. Lexus Green, 3 News.
Now, some additional information here. We're told that 3 abandoned rafts were found along the shoreline. According to the Border Patrol, all 11 of the people detained will be processed accordingly.